The Titanic sank on April 15, 1912, on her maiden voyage, resulting in the death of over 1,500 people. The night of the sinking were 8 heroes, the musicians. They played to keep the passengers calm. They played until the very end, until the last moments when the Titanic sank. This is their story. Hello, this is the Pasha Music Network, and I'm Alfred Seranian. Thank you for joining me on this video. Before we get to the topic, please go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel, as this will bring more videos in the future on topics of music history, world music, and music education. So let's go to the topic, the Titanic. The Titanic, the historical Titanic, was an ocean liner operated by White Star Line. And this ship was considered unsinkable, and it was not meant for speed, but for comfort and luxury. So what happened to this ship? On that ill-fated night of April 15th of 1912, it had run into an iceberg and it sank, of course. We know that. So we know the whole story and everything else. But what about the music, the musicians? There are 8 musicians aboard the ship who have historically been known to be playing until the ship sank. This video is on their story. CW and FN Black were the booking agency that enlisted the 8 musicians for the maiden voyage of the Titanic. Prior to the agency, musicians were employed by White Star Line and other ocean liners and were crew members. However, CW and EN Black took over the booking of the musicians for the ocean liners. The musicians traveled as second-class passengers, and they all had the same ticket, number 250654. Wallace Hartley was hired and booked as the bandmaster for the voyage. All the musicians got paid £4 per musician per day, which is half the pay that would have gotten if hired by the ocean liner. The other half was the fee for the agency. White Star Line had a program book of repertoire. These are music to be performed on the ocean liners. The program book was a standard and consisted of 341 pieces that the orchestra plays aboard the ships. The repertoire was divided into different categories, including overtures, selections of major works, suites, fantasies, waltzes, ragtime, and other popular music of the generation. Each first-class passenger had one of these booklets, and when they wanted to request a song, they would call out the number or the name of the song. The musicians were prepared to play all of these pieces at any given time during performances. The 8 musicians were divided into 2 groups, a quintet and a trio. The quintet was made up of 2 violins, 2 celli, and 1 double bass. The trio was a traditional piano trio with a piano, violin, and cello. They performed the first class and second class areas of the ship. The quintet, led by Hartley, performed at tea time, before and after dinner concerts, Sunday services, and other occasions. The trio, led by Theodore Brayley, played at the exclusive a la carte restaurant and the Café Parisien in the intimate dinner area for the first-class passengers. Wallace Hartley, a violinist, was the band leader of the Titanic musicians. He was employed by White Star Line but later transferred to the CW and FN Black agency, who supplied all the musicians for the ocean liners. His status was changed from crew member to second-class passenger of all the ocean liners. He took the booking of the Titanic in hopes it would give him possible contacts for future gigs, as he was engaged to be married to Maria Robinson. His body was recovered 2 weeks after the sinking, and confirming that it is his body found fully dressed with his violin case strapped to his body. His body was returned to his hometown, where a funeral was held on May 18, 1912. His violin was given to his fiancée, who after her death gave it to her sister, who then gave it to charity, and then it was passed from owner to owner until now it resides at the Titanic Belfast Museum. It is no longer playable, of course, but it has a history of the heroics of Wallace Hartley playing on the night that the Titanic sank. William Brayley was a pianist of the musicians. He first played on the Saxonia, then joined the steamer RMS Capricia, where he met cellist Roger Bricout. They both joined the White Star Line and were recruited by the Black Agency to play on the Titanic. His father, this is very interesting, was a spiritual medium and wanted Brayley to not join the trip of the Titanic, stating that he had a bad feeling about it. He was 24 years old when he died with the sinking of the Titanic. His body was never recovered. John Clark was the bassist of the musicians. He was first working as an insurance clerk at the age of 18 in Liverpool, and then by 1911 he had fully established himself as a musician and performed with the Liverpool Philharmonic, a very prestigious ensemble. This was the contributed factor for his selection to be one of the 8 musicians for the Titanic's maiden voyage. His body was recovered, identified as number 202. Roger Bricout was a French cellist. He joined the Titanic musical ensemble along with William Brayley. He moved to England after he studied at the Paris Conservatory in 1910. He was only 20 years old when he died with the sinking of the Titanic. His body was never recovered. Jacques Hume was one of the violinists of the musicians of the Titanic. In the winter of 1910 through 1911, he was in Kingston, where he performed in the orchestra of the Constant Spring Hotel. The cellist John Woodward of the Titanic was also a member of this orchestra. At this time, Hume had already played for at least 5 ships before he was recruited to play on the Titanic, as he had built a reputation as a ship musician. At the time of the Titanic voyage, he was engaged to Mary Costin, who was pregnant with his child. He was 21 years old when the Titanic sank. His body was recovered. George Crins, who was the 3rd violinist of the musicians of the Titanic. He was Belgian, born in Paris, France. He studied at the Conservatoire of Royal de Musique in Belgium until 1908, where he won first prize for highest distinction. He then worked at his father's shop while playing with the La Grande Symphonie, then became first violinist of the Le Trianon Lyrique in Paris. He then moved to London and played at the Ritz Hotel until March of 1912. This is when he was recruited by the Black Agency to play on the Titanic. He was 23 years old when he died, and his body was never recovered. Percy Taylor was one of the cellists of the musicians of the Titanic. He was born in London, and he was the son of Martin Taylor and Emily Wheeler. He had 5 siblings. He was married to a widow named Clara Alice Davis on May 20th, 1906. She was an actress and she was living with her parents in 1911 as Percy Taylor was out playing on ships. He was 40 years old when he died at the time of the sinking of the Titanic, making him the oldest member of the members of the orchestra. His body was never recovered. John Wesley Woodward was one of the cellists of the orchestra. He was born in West Bromwich in September 11th of 1879 and was the youngest of 10 children to Joseph and Martha Woodward. He became a professional musician playing in Oxford and Eastbourne. He played cello at the Grand Hotel and with other local orchestras. He then joined the White Star musicians playing on various ships. He was 33 years old when he died at the time of the sinking of the Titanic. His body was never recovered. On the night of the sinking, the musicians first started playing inside and then went out onto the deck. They played so that they can keep the passengers calm as they were getting onto the lifeboats. But what about the musicians themselves? They were very courageous to be able to play. They must have had nerves of steel. But then again, it could have been also to help them stay calm. As they played, they stayed calm and they had the nerve of steel. It took probably a lot of courage for them to be able to play, knowing that the ship is sinking and they probably would go down with the ship. It is reported they were performing many lively and fast-tempo music to keep a happy and uplifting mood for the passengers. As to what they were performing, there is no record. However, it must have been the music that was on the White Star Line program book. It is also reported that the final song they played was the hymn, "Nearer, My God, to Thee." It is not a fact, but survivors thought they heard them play this. First, Wallace Hartley played it as a solo, then the other musicians joined in harmony as they played their final number before they perished with the Titanic. They played until the very end. This was right at the last moments as the Titanic completely sank to the bottom of the ocean. A memorial concert was held for the musicians of the Titanic at the Royal Albert Hall on Friday, May 24th, to raise funds to support the families of the musicians. Musicians from the London Philharmonic Orchestra, the Queen's Hall Orchestra, the London Symphony Orchestra, among others, performed at this concert. Ada Crossley opened the concert with Felix Mendelssohn's O Rest in the Lord from Elia. The program also included Chopin's Funeral March from his Piano Sonata, works by Elgar, Tchaikovsky, Wagner, and the concert ended with Nearer My God to Thee. For further information on the musicians of the Titanic, there are two excellent documentaries available. From 2012, British film Titanic, The Band Played On, and from 2014, the American film Titanic, The Band of Courage, are available. Links are in the description below. For further information on the Titanic itself, the history of that night, the history of the ship, the construction, and other details, I highly recommend the YouTube channel Oceanliner Designs by Mike Brady. He has an outstanding and detailed research on the Titanic with numerous videos. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider to like the video and subscribe to the channel. This will help the channel grow for future videos on music history, music topics, world music, and music education. Please visit our website at pashamusic.com for more information on what we produce. We love to hear from you, and if you have a suggestion on a future video topic, please email us at info@pashamusic.com.